Yes.
Give me 1 second. Are you able to see the slides on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Then we'll start for today. Our topic for today's session is interview skills. Now, this is for those of you who are here for the first time. This is a workshop intended to ensure that you have skills fare well in life periodically. These are things that after and as teachers of English we are that you have these skills in place. Right. My name is Tessa M. George. I will be facilitating this session for you today. I graduated from IIT Madras with an integrated MA in English Studies in 2020. I am currently pursuing another master's degree in comparative literature from the English and Foreign Languages University. At some point in your life, all of you will need to face an interview. This might be an interview for a job, an interview for an internship, an interview for, say, as part of a competitive examination. It could be interviews of different kinds, but you will have to face an interview at some point or the other. Therefore, it is necessary for us to be prepared when not in terms of the content of what we'll have to say in that interview, but in terms of the mindset of what should be anticipated in terms of an interview. Okay, in terms of any interview. That is the intention of this session. When you are applying for a job, oftentimes you study or you come across a job posting, an advertisement. You make an application, and your application will involve most likely your resume alongside a cover letter. Now, we'll see what this cover letter is, but the first moment of familiarity that you will have with that prospective job will be your job description. And you come to be familiar with this job description as a part of your application process. After you study the job description, you make your application along with your cover letter. And it is only after that level of screening that you get the call for an interview. Let's assume that you have fared well so far and that you get the interview call. What do we do after that point? As a prospective, as an aspirant, as a prospective employee, you should know whether or not you fit the company and you fit the job description. You need to have a lot of clarity in place before you approach or face an interview panel. And in order to gain clarity, you should reassess yourself. Assessing ourselves is something that we do all the time. Every week you get assessments. But a reassessment of yourself is knowing what is non negotiable to you. A non negotiable is something on which you're not willing to compromise. For example, when I was applying for a job, if at some point anything is not clear to you or if it is not audible to you, please stop me, tell me what is wrong, and ask me to repeat that point, okay? Right. A non negotiable is something on which you're not willing to compromise. When I was applying for a job, it was not negotiable to me that I be allowed to teach literature. So I was sure about that. Any job which did not allow me to teach literature was not something that I was desirous of pursuing. You should also know what your strengths are. You, as data scientists, will be competing in a very uh, talent intensive field, so to speak. So you should know what it is that you bring to the table. Oftentimes, when we give you assignments, we prompt you to think in this direction. What are the things that you consider to be your strengths? And there are these cliched elements in that, such as I'm very good with analytical skills. That is a favorite among data science students. Analytical skills, and then I am very good as a team player. I pursue team goals. But imagine a bunch of cover letters where these words sit. What makes you stand out? What is it that you bring to the table as an individual, as a unique aspirant? Okay? So, as far as identifying your strengths are concerned, understand that this is a very personal question. It's not a question that comes pre-phrased. Do not resort to cliched arguments when you're trying to answer this question. But there are specific individual capabilities that will make you stand out among a plethora of aspirants, let's say. Okay? There should always be a level of fitness between what you are as an employee and what the company expects of you as an employee. Okay? This is called alignment. And by studying a job description, you can almost always ascertain whether you align well for the job at hand. Always remember that when a company advertises for a position, they are seeking to fill a need. And you, when you present yourself there as an applicant, you should be able to fill that need. So, this fitness or this alignment is what claims that you will be able to fit the need the company has of that particular employee. Company research. Check the background of the company to which you are applying. What are the core values of this company? What is the department work culture like? I mean, you will know that you are applying to a specific profile. And when you are applying to that specific job profile, you will have to work as part of a specific group or a department. Contacting them beforehand, knowing what the department has done so far, by doing some sort of research about the company can help you decide whether or not this is a group that you would like to be a part of. You could similarly do a background check of your supervisor or other employees. You could get in touch with people, build a rapport with them, see if this is an environment which will allow you to flourish. Okay? It is necessary to do this step because as aspirants, we are very enthusiastic. We want to land that job. But once we have landed the job, maybe a three after maybe 3 months into the job or 4 months into the job, we might face extremely difficult workplace situations which make us realize that we were not in fact a good fit in terms of the work culture. So knowing these beforehand is going to allow you flourish or thrive in that particular job profile. That is why company research is important. Right. No interview is a battle. All interviews are simply communicative processes. But there is a way in which you should be able to communicate about yourself to somebody who's looking to hire you in order to ensure that you stand out. Okay? It is not a battle, it is merely a conversation. So you should know how to converse about yourself. There are multiple things that will be difficult for us in communicating about ourselves. For example, when I used to give interviews, I used to wonder, I used to struggle to present my strengths as strengths. Let's say a CGPA, for example. You have a very impressive CGPA, and you, as students of IIT Madras, you know that your institute holds a certain degree of. Give me a second, somebody is seeking admission. You know that the name of your institute has a certain degree of gravity in terms of the job market. But what is it going to be if you're unable to communicate all the strengths that you have on your side as positives which will allow you to contribute further to the company? Do you understand? So you should be able to communicate your strengths in an adequate manner, in a positive light, as strengths that you can use to serve this company further in that job profile. Preparing for an interview involves certain steps. And the first step is to know your resume. Like we discussed, when we make an application, we will have a resume and we will have a cover letter. You should know every point on your resume. Your resume should not be a standard issue document. For example, you do not use the same resume to apply to two different jobs. You always tweak and edit your resume such that it proclaims an alignment with the job description, such that it always hints to the employer that you are a candidate who can fill the need that the company has in terms of that vacant position. You will also be drafting a cover letter. Now, as we go further in this presentation, we will see the specific constituents of a cover letter. A cover letter is a statement of how well you think you can deal with the expectations that this job profile has of a prospective candidate. Okay? There will also be a job description. Now, you have to understand that just as the job description is your first insight into the company, your resume is your employer's first insight into you. That is why a resume will always have to be tweaked such that it fits or aligns a specific job description. Do not make the mistake of using the same resume for different applications. Always highlight what you think the job description highlights in terms of requirements. Also, know that the further you progress in your career, there will be details in your resume which will grow redundant. So, you'll have to omit those details and put in newer information. What further progress have you made? What recent progress have you made? Those should take the more prominent position on your resume. You can also anticipate most questions that you might receive for an interview. And you can anticipate questions based on what hints you receive from the job description. You can practice what answers you could possibly provide for these questions to a prospective employer. There are specific sets of questions that interviewers are very fond of asking. classic HR questions, behavioral questions, hard tech skills questions, guesstimate questions, case questions. These are all specific categories of different kinds of questions that interviewers are fond of asking. They often ask. You can also prepare questions to pose to your interviewers. It's not like you have to be the recipient of questions and your interviewers always have to be the providers of questions. You can also pose questions back to them, but in a sensible manner. So be careful about the kind of questions that you ask them. Do not appear to be a flippant candidate. The questions that you raise at that point in the interview can be very decisive in determining whether or not you get the job. Okay. This is something that we have already discussed. You should know your resume inside out, you should know your cover letter inside out, and you should know what the job description demands of you. As we would have used a specific cover letter and a specific CV to apply for a particular job, you should know why it is that you have used a specific word or why it is that you have highlighted a particular project while you were making this application. For example, in I can only give you examples from my own life. While I was applying for my first job, I had highlighted a certain research project that I had done as part of my postgraduate work in that particular CV or that resume. This is not a project that is related to my discipline. My discipline is literature. This was not a project that was related or that belonged to my discipline. This was a project that belonged to the discipline of urban studies. So it stood out to my employer. Amongst several projects that were literature oriented, they picked out this particular urban studies project and asked me why it was that I had chosen to do that particular project. And then I had to give them a rundown of what I had learned or done in that particular exercise. This can be a difficult thing to do because you would have several achievements listed out on your resume, and you will never know which of these is going to be picked out by an employer. That is why it is necessary for you to know the reasoning behind why you put that particular project, that particular achievement in that resume or that cover letter or that CV while you were making the application. You need to be prepared to discuss every single point on your resume. No point is less important, no point is more important. You should know how you will be able to back up the claims that you have made in your resume. If you have, for example, claimed that you are very good at dealing with challenges in terms of you are very good at problem solving, then you will have to give an example of a specific instance, of a particular instance in your career where you have had to solve a problem, where you've had to solve a problem involving multiple variables, multiple constituents, determining constituents, and what it was that allowed you to solve the problem effectively. So you should not make empty claims. It should not look to the employer that you are using cliched, hand me down phrases to describe yourself without having anything concrete to back yourself up on those claims. Try to put yourself in your recruiter's shoes, in your HR manager's shoes, for instance. Find out potential points in your resume that they are likely to pick on. Again, this is not a foolproof method. You will never be able to pick out every point that the person who is there to interview you or hire you might pick up on. Interview panels are very good at picking out some odd point in your resume which you would not have anticipated to be picked out, right? So know your resume, and this is not an exercise in by hearting answers. Rather, this is reasoning out why it is that you value a certain achievement in your education so far or in your career experience so far, such that it would figure in job application. Once you know why it is that this particular project or this particular experience is important to you, you will be able to answer any question concerning that particular point. So don't worry in try to prepare your mind or your answer in terms of why it is that you included it in your resume in the first place. Because that is the most important element for you to tackle or for you to be clear about. Right. Most interviewers have a set of classic questions. You can always practice with people, with different people. Again, it is helpful to practice with people of different age groups. Oftentimes, we make the mistake. Did somebody want to say something? Okay. We make the mistake of practicing with only people from our own peer group. That can be a problem because your employers, your interviewers might belong to another generation entirely, especially if you're making a research application. If you are making an application for a high up position, you will be interviewed by older people. Okay, so the kind of questions that they pose to you will be significantly different from the kind of questions that might be posed to you by somebody from a similar age group. Okay, so make sure to be practicing with a mixed set of people. You can always ask one of your older relatives, whom you might otherwise find a little irritating, to humor you by playing the role of your interviewer. Okay? And they can ask you very insightful questions, questions that you might not otherwise have anticipated. And it will help you in terms of the interview, in terms of how well prepared you are for the interview. Sometimes, other than the classic categories of questions, which I will explain to you, there can also be questions that catch you off guard. Catch you off guard is simply means questions that you would never have expected. You simply would not have anticipated that question. For example, when I went for an interview, I'm a very lean person. My physique is not very impressive at all. So when I went for an interview, they concluded their questions in terms of domain expertise, how well of a fit I might be in their enterprise, and all of that. But the last question that they posed to me was, "Are you sick?" And it really threw me off my guard. And I was not expecting that question to hit me. It is also low key offensive if you think about it. Just they are making an assumption based off of my appearance. That can be very hurtful sometimes. But it is very important to not be enraged or to not get upset by a question like that. Okay? Keep your calm. It's always helpful to breathe. Take a breath, take a short thinking pause, and respond to them with polite answer. Most questions that catch you off guard can be dealt with very effectively if you give them a very polite answer. The mistake that interviewees often make is to be enraged by the question. We should remember that we do not have to be enraged by any question. We do have the presence of mind to keep our cool and approach the question in a logical, in a polite manner. Okay? If you want to ask a question, that is perfectly fine. Go on, raise your hand or something, and then you can pose the question. All right. Classic HR questions. This is the first category of questions, sets of questions that we can anticipate from an interviewer. These are the kind of questions which might appear very innocent, innocuous looking, harmless questions, such as, tell me about yourself. Now, this doesn't look like much. This might even appear to be a simple icebreaker. But this is a very tricky question to handle. It is very helpful to know the answers to such classic HR questions before you go into an interview room or in front of an interview panel, because these are questions that make your own position as an applicant that much more clear to you. It gives you a great deal of clarity. When you are trying to introduce yourself to somebody, you will have to think about how you appear to a person with whom you are not otherwise acquainted. Nitish, kindly turn off your camera unless it is necessary for you to keep your camera on. Thank you. When you introduce yourself, make an active attempt to appear to be more than your bio. You should be able to identify what it is that the company needs in that particular job profile, and then it appears that you fill that specific need. When you are applying, let's say, one of the jobs that I applied for was a content writing and editing job, and it had a certain design element to it. Now, I'm not an artistic person at all. So I found it very difficult to cater to that design element of that job description. And this is what eventually made me withdraw my application, because I realized that I could not fill that specific need. Again, it can also prompt you to do good things with your life, such as gaining design skills in my case. Okay? So always know that once you know the answer to a classic HR question, you will be able to have a great deal of clarity on whether or not you fill the specific needs that the company has. When you are trying to answer a question such as introducing yourself, you can use the present, past, future formula. You start with where you are at the moment. At the moment, I am working in such and such a position at such and such a company. Then you move on to your past. I graduated from here with such and such achievements to my credit, and I have completed this project, this internship, gained this skill, and that is what allowed me to reach this particular position in my present. And then you need to go to the future. If I am selected for this particular job, then I am going to leverage all of my skills so far acquired such that I can work them to the benefit of your company, such that I can use my skills to aid your goals. I hope that is clear to you. You start with the present, you go back to the future, go back to the past and identify what it was that allowed you to reach to the present, and then you sort of project yourself into the future, okay? And see, or rather say, what are the things that you will be able to accomplish in the future in service of the company that you are going to be hired into. Okay, this is the present, past, future formula. When you are approaching yourself from the present perspective, you could talk a little bit about what your current role is. What are the things that you do in this particular role? What are the scopes? What are the things that you are allowed to scope out in this role? Maybe you could also cite a recent big accomplishment. For example, in the field of literature, I always give you examples from the field of literature, not because that is the kind of question that you will receive, but because those are the kind of questions that I have received. Okay? Now, you can tell me later on what are the kind of questions that a data scientist would possibly receive. Okay, there will be differences. I'm only providing you examples from my domain. In the domain of literature, an accomplishment is almost always some sort of literary accomplishment. If you have published something, for instance, a very good piece of research or a very good literary work, if you have performed something, if you have staged or directed a certain play, for instance, if you have done something that contributes to the domain, then that is a recent big accomplishment which you can cite with regard to your present position. Then you go back to your past and then you tell your interviewer how you got to the present. How did you acquire the skills that allow you to function effectively in your present position? How are these skills going to aid you in performing this particular in performing in the particular job profile to which you are currently applying? Then you segue into the future, you project yourself into the future, and you tell them what it is that you're looking to do next. What are your personal goals? Okay? Why is it that you're interested in working for this particular company? And how is it that the goals of this company align with your own personal goals in terms of work, career, life, right? How is it that this alignment is going to help you operate or function that much more better in that job profile? Some of the other questions that you can anticipate, that you can expect from an employer are: what are your goals? What is your vision? Why did you choose this job or this company? Where do you see yourself in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years? That's a very tricky question. We'll come back to that. What are your strengths or weaknesses? How would your best friend describe you? There's a small spelling error there. It's describe. I'm sorry about that. You will also have to demonstrate how well you know your field, your industry, your domain. What do you think is the most important problem that the industry is facing today? When I was applying for a teaching position, one of the things that I had to convince my employer was that I was capable of speaking to a class of 60 students, that I would be capable of projecting my voice such that all 60 of them would be able to understand me. That's a very interesting proposition. That is a very interesting point on which one would have to defend oneself. But that is also something that is specific to that job location. That is something that you would have to convince your employer of. You might have already gone through the company's website at this point. Which of their ongoing projects are you most interested in? How is it that particular project captures your interest? In what way do you think you would be able to contribute that to that project? Now, I am going to stop talking for a little while. I want you now, oftentimes, when I ask data science students, what is the company that you would like to work for? I get answers like Google. Now, I'm not going to assume that this is the company that all of you. Where can we find the recording of this session? You can find the recording of this session on the YouTube channel for the program, for the BS degree program. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on your discourse forum. The course also has a discourse forum. So kindly go to the forum and check. There will be the links available there. The video will be uploaded to the YouTube channel, if not tomorrow, then in a few days. Okay. So please wait for that. You will get the recording. The link is also there in the calendar. Okay. That'll be very helpful. You can also find the link in the calendar, it seems. Okay. Right. Now, what I want you to do, I was about to stop talking. I want you to tell me, take 2 minutes to yourself, identify any one company that you would like to work for. I am not going to hold it against you if you say Google once again. It's fine by me. I hope you get to work there as well. But I just want you to tell me why it is that you want to work for that company. How is it that your goals would align with whatever the company demands of you? Okay? How is it that your strengths would align with what the company expects of you? All of you take 2 minutes. Oh, you want to work at Qualcomm? Okay, very good. Venkata Subhash. Okay, Venkata Subhash, can you tell me why it is that you will like to work at Qualcomm? Why is it that you think your goals align with the vision of Qualcomm as a company?
Um, Good evening, madam.
Good evening.
Yeah, actually, I'm student of electronic systems degree at IIT Madras. So
Okay,
it seems more. I mean, our field of study aligns more with the jobs at Qualcomm.
explain. That is a very
At
general answer, no?
Yeah, to be more specific, our field of study is basically aligned towards VLSI designing, and my field of interest also lies at this particular thing, VLSI designing. So that I want to become an microprocessor designer at Qualcomm.
You want to become a microprocessor designer at Qualcomm. And what do you think the skills that Qualcomm expects out of a microprocessor designer?
Really, I'm not sure about that, man.
Okay, that's okay. So I was just asking you just to know why it is that you have, if you have a clear answer as to why it is that you would like to work for your dream companies. Anybody else? Thank you. Can I call? Is your proper name Venkata or is it Subhash?
Subhash,
Okay. Thank you, Subhash, for your answer. That was very
thank you.
helpful. Somebody else who would like to volunteer, or I can call out names at random. Any specific company that you would like to work for, why it is that you would like to work for that company? Do you want me to call out names? Lakshmi Priya, are you here? I don't intend to scold anybody, I don't intend to shame anybody, I just want to hear your thoughts. How it is that you would approach a question of this sort. Please do not be scared to answer. Is Lakshmi Priya here? Joyce, you would like to say something. Okay, go on. Go on,
Good
Joyce.
evening, ma'am.
Oh,
Am I audible?
yes, you are audible, please.
Yeah. I just want to give it a try. I haven't given much thought about it. So
That's
just as a
perfectly
practice
fine. Go
session,
on.
I would like to go with the company Google itself. So
Okay.
Google is a search engine company, and it aims in providing people the information that is around the world in a much more in a much more sophisticated and a proper researched way. So, as I'm studying data scientist in IIT Madras, I
You are
and
studying
my
data
principal too believes in
science.
yes, sorry,
Ah, it's okay.
okay. As I'm studying data science here at IIT Madras, it aims to make data much more clarified, and it also helps in what do you categorizing the information, and uh, also to reach out the info and also to spread the information all around the people, which is like true in fact, and to give them a much more concise and a better information. And according to my core values as a person, I believe that every person should have the right to the right information. So Google
Understood.
helps in providing such things. Yes.
Okay. That was a very well phrased answer. Well done on that. So that was a very helpful way of putting it as well. So I do not notice if you guys saw the manner in which he was trying to make his own perspective align with that of the company. It's a very good strategy. And I am speaking not from an ethical standpoint, because sometimes that might not be the most ethical thing to do, Just giving you a fair warning there, but it can be a very good strategy in terms of an interview perspective, like the skills that you require to face an interview, right? It is extremely helpful if you can approach a question like this, both from a personal perspective and from the perspective of your company. If you could find a way in which you could make your own expectations, your own goals meet with the goals of your company, that is most certainly going to present you in a positive light to your employers. Okay, thank you, Joyce. That was very helpful. Anybody else?
Thank you, ma'am.
Prajwalit, are you here?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Would you like to attempt an answer?
Ma'am, I am not given thought to this question.
You've not yet given any thought to this question. That is okay. Don't worry. Don't get anxious. Now, that's okay. Thank you, however, for responding. When I ask you something, it is not intended to make you anxious. I do, however, want you to get used to talking. This is a very good practice session in terms of how to talk, because this is also a place where you're not going to be judged on what you say. Okay, this is a very forgiving session in that sense. So I would appreciate it if more of you would talk, because it's going to be very helpful to you. Right. So now we have a broad idea about how it is that you can gain more clarity about yourself, about where you stand as an applicant, by anticipating and preparing answers to classic HR questions. Now, I want you to attempt to answer a different question. I want you to tell me, how would your best friend describe you? But this question, or the answer to this question, has to be calibrated such that it would help you land your dream job. Okay? Whatever that job might be, you need to give me an answer that is going to present you in a positive light. Could you try doing that? Sarah Santiago, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to attempt an answer? How would your best friend describe you?
Um, I
Try.
think the word that comes to my mind would be detail oriented.
Detail oriented, okay.
Yeah, attention to detail or focus on detail, something like that.
That is all.
Very good coordination skills, able to manage different timelines or projects within the time frame that I need to
Okay.
submit to.
That is, those points are very good. I mean, answer wise, that is perfect. But I want you to try looking at it in a different light as well. For example, it's not how would your supervisor describe you, it's how would your best friend describe you. So they would also likely have some knowledge of how you interact with other people, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me a bit about your people skills in terms of how your best friend might interpret those skills?
My friends might call me easy to get along with, open to having conversations, both serious and fun, and able to find like a balance between, like I said, the serious and fun as well.
Let's assume there is somebody with whom you find it difficult to find some common ground. How would
Right.
you get along with them?
Perhaps to try to find some common interests, as a way into opening a conversation with the person.
Very good.
Or something similar, like if we have some similar traits or similar hobbies or something like that, to kind of have a way into opening a conversation and then trying to deal with whatever the difficulty might be.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a very helpful answer. There are a couple things that I want all of you to note in that answer. One, she started with the standard, yes, I'm very good for this job kind of a perspective. She said she had attention to detail. Very good at coordinating. It's great in terms of, if you think from the perspective of an employer, those are very great skills for an employee to have. But then she also told us a bit about her people skills, her interpersonal skills. And that is important because those skills are what allow you to work well in a group environment. Okay, you will not be working alone. Wherever you are, you work alone. There is something she said, which was that it's easy to get along with. And she is very good at conversations, both serious conversations and fun conversations. Notice how, when she gives this answer, she is becoming more of a person than whatever is written in her resume. Now she is an actual person talking to the employer. She's not just a dry fact resume that is in front of the employer. An answer helped her become that person. Okay, that is what I want you to pay attention to. All of these might seem trivial, unimportant, but at the end of the day, this is the picture that you paint in front of an employer of yourself. Okay, and that is very critical. It is necessary for you to succeed in that interview. And the last point was, how would she get along with somebody with whom she has very few common interests? And of all the things that she said to us as in answer to that, we understood, and I understood something, which is that she would not shut out that person. She would still try to find some sort of a common interest. She would still interact with that person. It's a great interpersonal skill to have. Just because somebody is not like you, you do not shut them out. Rather, you interact with them in whatever capacity you find it capable for you to interact with them. That is how you deal with dissimilar people. That answer was very good, and I want you to specifically notice how the answer to such a question that seems very innocent, can actually flesh you out as a full person in front of an employer. I hope that is clear to you, and Sarah's answer was very helpful in that regard. Thank you. Now we move on. There are other sets of questions known as behavioral questions. Behavioral questions, no surprises here, try to see how you behave in a given situation. Tell me about your last internship experience. Was there anything you did not like about it? Tell me about a time when you were tolerant of an opinion that was different from yours. Tell us about one time you ran into a problem when leading a team. How did you overcome it? How do you deal with uncertainty? An almost existential question. How do you deal with uncertainty? How receptive are you to feedback and criticism? How do you build and maintain relationships in a professional capacity? All of these are questions that try to assess how you behave in a given context. Now, I want you to try and answer the first question because almost all of you would have done some internship or the other, I'm assuming. I want you to go back to that internship experience and tell me what you did not like about it. If you notice, such questions are trying to dig a little deeper into your personality. Almost always, when we craft our answers to an interviewer, we try to omit everything that is unpleasant. We try to deal with all our details from a purely positive light. So there are things that we repress, that we stamp down on. And then out of nowhere, when somebody poses a behavioral questions, we will have to extract information from that repressed reserve of unpleasant things. Okay? So you should know how to deal with a behavioral question. You should know how to present something that was unpleasant to you in a positive light. That's a very tricky thing to do, but that is what you should know how to do. Okay. While you are answering a question of this sort, you can use the stars method. Right before this, we saw one method which was present, past, future method. Here we have the stars method, which is situation, task, action, result, and skills. Can somebody repeat to me what stars means? What does stars stand for? Tanishka, are you here? What does stars stand for?
Yes, ma'am. Situation, task, action, results.
Result and
And
stars, one
skills.
final S, and skills. Yes, very good. What do you think this method deals with? Anytime a behavioral question is posed to you, you are put in a situation, in a specific situation. The situation demands you to do certain tasks, and accomplishing that tasks involves taking action. That action would have a particular result, and you are trying to approach the question in terms of your takeaways. Whatever skills you learned, whatever you had to take away from that particular experience, that involves skills. Okay, take 2 minutes once again, like I told you. The first question, tell me about an internship experience. Was there anything that you did not like about it? This is what I want you to tell me now. Okay, take 2 minutes. Tarun, you'd asked for the PDF. So I will not be the one to give you the PDF, but the PDF will be posted to your course portal, student portal or course portal, the same place where you get all your other study materials. Gosh, can you try and answer the first question? If you are here, can you try and answer the first question? Okay. Aditi, are you here? If you are not talking because you're scared to talk, please don't be scared to talk. Try to take this as a practice session where you can talk. Whatever you say, I'm not going to criticize you. I will only take the good things from whatever you say. Don't worry about it. Oh, you're in the metro. Okay, that's okay, Aditi. Don't worry about it. Madhabi, are you here? Speak. Speak, children. Speak. Try and speak. Get over the fear of speaking. Akash Deep, can you try saying something? None of you want to talk. Yes, Akash, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have no experience
Internship.
You don't have any internship experience so far. Okay, that's okay. Swati? Guys, don't laugh at them. See, he gave a
Ma'am, I
very
am a
honest
first year
answer.
student, so I have also
Sorry?
not done any internship. Ma'am, I am also a first year student, so I have also not done any internship.
Okay, you have not done any internship so far. Okay, never mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. We will move on then. I hope you get the point here. If you want me to give you an example of what I did not like in one of the internships that I did, it was that they would not give me clear instructions. I hated that. The expectations were not clearly stated beforehand. So while I was doing the internship, they would give me broad sketch instructions, but they would not tell me specifically what they expected. And that leads to a lot of conflicts in a workplace. So, knowing that I do not particularly like this, it allowed me to make sure that my communication with my employer was always clear thereafter. So, that negative experience helped me further in life to ensure that I would always have a clear channel of communication with my employer and that all expectations would be clear to me. So I would not keep quiet when I felt like something was not very clearly explained. When the expectation was not clearly stated, I would hound them with questions until I felt that I had the clarity that I needed to do the task at hand. Okay, and that's a skill. That was my takeaway from that particular experience. This is the way in which you present this. Like I said, this is a negative experience. So even when you take and present that negative experience in front of your prospective employer, you present it in such a way that you always have something good to take away from that experience, that you always have something positive to learn from that experience. Whatever we covered in today's session, we will carry on with whatever is left in tomorrow's session. So I will conclude today's session with this. Just to recap, just quickly recap, we can get some classic HR questions. They might seem innocent, but they are not. Anticipating and preparing answers for classic HR questions like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Can give us a lot of clarity with regard to our standpoint, and that is very helpful for us as applicants. You can also get behavioral questions. To answer a behavioral question, we can use the STARS method: situation, task, action, result, and skills. You always present a negative experience in a positive light such that you had a takeaway from that particular experience. You learned something from it, and whatever you learned helped you further in life. And while you're introducing yourself, you can use the present, past, future method. You start from the present, go to the past, and then project yourself into the future. I hope this was clear to all of you. I hope this was helpful to all of you. Wherever we stop now, we carry on from that point tomorrow. I hope you'll be here tomorrow as well. Thank you very much for joining me for this session. I hope you'll be here tomorrow. Have a very pleasant evening ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.